Hello Zimbabwe and welcome to Livetalk, The Connection, a platform where we discuss issues affecting young people. We are coming to you live from Studio 7 at the Voice of America in Washington. I'm your host, Tabaka Ngube. Today on Live Talk, we are discussing lack of policy-driven politics in Zimbabwe, as well as the role of young people in shaping Zimbabwean politics. Today, we will dwell mainly on the dangers of personality and partisan-driven politics. But first, a look at what is happening elsewhere. After months of negotiations, U.S. senators will vote on a $118 billion bipartisan agreement on border security and aid to Ukraine and Israel later this week. As VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson reports, even if the bill passes the Democratic majority U.S. Senate, it has little chance of passage in the Republican majority U.S. House of Representatives.
For the first time in more than a decade, major immigration legislation will come up for a vote later this week on Capitol Hill. In return for Republican votes to pass aid to Ukraine, U.S. senators negotiated changes to the U.S. asylum system and border security policies.
This supplemental package is a real opportunity for Congress to finally address America's borders and make progress towards a more efficient and well-resourced system. It will cut years of delay in the asylum process while ensuring fair outcomes.
The bill would fund an increase in immigration detention capacity from 34,000 to 50,000. It would also end the practice of allowing migrants to remain in the United States while claiming asylum and would force the U.S. to shut down the U.S.-Mexico border if there is a 7-day rolling average of 5,000 migrant encounters or 8,500 encounters in a single day. The deal also includes $60 billion in aid to Ukraine, $14 billion to Israel, as well as aid to Indo-Pacific countries to fight Chinese aggression. If passed, the legislation would send $10 billion in humanitarian aid to the West Bank, Gaza, and Ukraine.
I've spoken at length for months about the urgent need to invest in American hard power, stand with our allies, and start showing our adversaries that the world's foremost superpower intends to start acting like one again. My colleagues know where I stand. They know as well as I do that American adversaries in Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran are working together.
The White House released a statement late Sunday saying President Joe Biden supports the bipartisan agreement. Former President Donald Trump, the current frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, said last week he was advising Republican lawmakers about a possible immigration deal.
And a lot of people do call me, they respect me, and they say, what do you think? If the bill's not going to be a great bill and really solve the problem, I wouldn't do it at all. Not for political reasons, just for U.S. reasons.
Speaker Mike Johnson said the bill, if passed, would be dead on arrival in the Republican-majority U.S. House of Representatives, which will move to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas this week, saying he is responsible for a crisis at the border.
The consequences of this crisis have been stark and sobering, and there's hardly a community anywhere in this country that's not felt the impact. But this is, again, a crisis of choice. Those choices were made by those in power, and today the House of Representatives is stepping up and saying no more.
If the bill fails passage in the U.S. House, lawmakers may need to negotiate separate legislation to send aid to Ukraine and Israel. Catherine Gibson, VOA News.
In Harare today, a British ambassador to Zimbabwe, Peter Vowles, held a meeting with the Speaker of the National Assembly, Advocate Jacob Mtenda, where he said Britain is willing to engage Zimbabwe on issues of democracy.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you very much. Yes, so it was an honour to pay a courtesy call on the Honourable Speaker. We discussed the importance of Zimbabwe's parliamentary democracy, and we discussed the legislative agenda going forward and a range of UK-Zimbabwe bilateral issues in the relationship between Britain and Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.
That was British Ambassador to Zimbabwe, Peter Vowles, speaking to journalists after a meeting with the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Mudenda, in Harare. Please stay tuned as we take a brief break.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
For those that have just joined us, please note that we are streaming live on our Facebook pages VOA Shona, VOA Studio 7 and VOA Ndebele. We are also live on YouTube, VOA Zimbabwe. Today on Live Talk, we are discussing policy-driven politics versus personality and party-driven politics in Zimbabwe, as well as the role of young people in shaping Zimbabwean politics. To discuss this hot issue, we are joined on the phone by Dr. Colin Chambwera, a political analyst and lecturer at the University of Johannesburg. Welcome to the show, Dr. Chambwera.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you,
the listeners.
We are also joined on the phone by Mr. Nhlanhla Moses Ncube of Freedom Alliance. Welcome to Live Talk.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you and your listeners.
Thank you. We'll just jump right into it. Dr. Chambwera, looking at the state of youth participation in politics in Zimbabwe, do you see the youths being active participants, or you see sometimes having youth being used by their political leaders? What's your take on this, Dr. Chambwera?
I'll try to be brief, but when you're looking at youth participation, you have to look at it from maybe a cultural perspective, a culture that was bred during the liberation struggle when young people went to the war, returned, they went to train and came back to fight, fighting for freedom. And then thereafter, when we gained independence, the young people were pretty much involved in the politics. They were pretty much aware of what was happening around them. But then over the years, what has happened is a systematic approach by the ruling parties to try and diminish the participation of young people in politics, or to make sure that when they participate in a particular way that is meant to prop up whoever is in power or to support whoever is the one who is ruling. So from the time of Robert Mugabe, young people would participate, but only in a manner that extols the one who is in power, Robert Mugabe. And that happened over a long time, such that today, even when the strong opposition parties like the MDC, when they came onto the scene, it was more again about the personalities who were leading the struggle. And you find many young people got involved, but largely following leaders who are not exactly youth, but we find that young people do participate, they are keen, but somehow there's a systematic, structural way of ensuring that their participation is more in line with whoever is leading the specific political party.
Thank you, Doka. Coming to you, Mr. Ncube, what's your take on this subject, looking at participation of young people in politics in Zimbabwe?
Thank you very much. The participation of young people in Zimbabwe is very much controlled by the old people. So young people do not participate so that their lives are better. But we find them participating because they want a certain old man or old woman to be happy about them to achieve his or her goal. So they will get in there without asking any question about policy or anything. Most of them, they would prefer to be, if you buy them beer, then they find that they are okay. And that's what has actually killed our politics. It has ended up having the young people being on drugs and other things. They will not care about their future because they've been told that you are the leaders of tomorrow. If you check, ZANU-PF has been having old men being youth leaders. Then these youths are being pacified by being told that, no, you are leaders of tomorrow. They wait for the tomorrow until they even end up retiring, reaching 65 years as it were, and retiring only to realize that they have been hoodwinked all their life.
Thank you, Mr. Ncube. I see you raise an issue, both of you raised the issue of independent thinking when it comes to Zimbabwean politics and young people. Dr. Chambwera, do you think the youths see more value in following a party or a personality within the context of Zimbabwe? Also, looking at how things happen maybe in neighboring South Africa, where you can find one person following Julius Malema, but not necessarily following EFF. What's your take on that?
So it's sort of the nature of African politics, so to speak, although when you look at Zimbabwe, it's probably, the worst case, the worst type of it, where young people tend to follow personalities. They do not necessarily question the policies that these personalities are propagating or are talking about. They do not care so much about how exactly things are going to be. So politicians make promises. This is what is going to happen. You are going to get jobs. But young people then do not get to a point where they actually ask, how are you going to ensure that we are going to get jobs? What are the policies that you are putting in place? So instead, they tend to run with slogans and all of that. They tend to follow a personality, and that is the nature of Zimbabwean politics. But it's not just a Zimbabwean thing. It's also quite a number of African countries. That's what tends to happen. People look at who is it that's leading. So you find that in most cases you find charismatic leaders of political parties who are of the older generation, as has been pointed out. They come and they speak all these things that young people want to hear about, but then young people quite often, of course this is not a generalization of young people, but we are saying what then tends to happen is a lot of the young people then tend to just follow these personalities. We are seeing it even now. When people are talking about ZANU-PF, it's about ED. When people are talking about the opposition, it's about Nelson Chamisa. That's how it is. If you've been following discussions on social media right now, especially with the opposition, Triple C, you will find that people will tell you that we will not go where Nelson Chamisa is not. So you find that it is about following this person. It's not so much about the policies that they are bringing. It's not so much about tangible things that they are offering or specifics about how they are going to change the real conditions of living of young people or of the generality of Zimbabweans, it's almost always about the personality. You can trace it, again, as I said earlier, it dates back to the liberation struggle. Up to today, it has continued.
Thank you. Mr. Ncube, siyabona laphana ukuthi kulolunye udaba olutshisayo kobulawayo lapho uMayor uDavid Coltart athi khona yena uza qhubekela phambili ngomsebenzi kodwa kulabanye abakade besithi kachiye elandele umkhokheli wakhe umnumzana Chamisa. Wena nxa ukhangele lapha ukubona njani? Ubona sengathi kungaba ngumzekeliso ngaphathisa abanye phambili ukuthi kwenelisa ukuthi kube leze politiki ezikhangela ukusebenza kwabantu kumbe ezikhangela inhloso yokuthi ngathi ngikhankasela ukuvotelwa ngathembisa abantu lokhu yikho engizakwenza kungelani lokuthi uzibani ukhona kumbe kakho.
Siyabonga kakhulu, muhle kakhulu umbuzo lo. Ubaba uColtart ngibona ethethe inyathelo elihle kakhulu okufuneka ukuthi ngabe abatsha bayakubona akwenzileyo, bayakuzwa ukukhulumileyo. Ngibona incwadi yakhe ayibhalileyo, yincwadi ebonisa ukukhula, yincwadi ebonisa ubuntu, yincwadi futhi ebonisa ukuzwisisa ukuthi ipolitics kumbe umbusazwe kutsho ukuthi usebenzise esingathi imetaphor kumbe umfaniso wokuthi khona kule salt okuthiwa isawudo emhlabeni elizakuba yileli letha ilight. So uColtart ubise isibonelo esihle kakhulu engicabanga ukuthi uChamisa laye njengomunye osesezingeni lalabo abakhulayo uza kuzwisisa khona kuyana ngoba ingozi esikhona njengoba udokotela esitsho lapha, ingozi eyenziwa ngumgali iyabuya kubothwangirayi yesiyibonisa isenzakala. uChamisa useze ebona ngathi engxenye angenza njengabomgali afake icultism, yikho engxenye ukuzamphumelelisa. Abantu abatsha bayadanisa kakhulu ukuthi kabadingi ukuthi ibandla lilethane. Ungabezwa uzwa kuthiwa khona ngapinde emkomani kangeni umfana ukuthi angene enzeni akuzwakali, kabafuni ukukhuluma ngakho khona. Kwesinye isikhathi ungakhuluma ngakho bangakushaya. So isibonelo esifakwe nguColtart sifuna sifunde ngabafana lamantombazana bezanu abe-CCC abangaphi Freedom Alliance sonke MRP kufuneka abatsha bakufunde khonokho ukuthi we should be driven by policies. Kuyakhulunywa unga-check imanifesto ungabuza umuntu e-CCC uthi wena kathi imanifesto yeni ithina ngeke akutshela, uza kutshela athi no thina sifuna ukukhipha izanu kuphela. So kule problem enkulu kakhulu ngokubona kwami. Kodwa ke khona ukhiyani ukuthi uColtart athi bakithi sikhethwe ngabantu, asimeleni abantu. Ubulawayo lwana kayisuwe owepolitics kuphela, ngowentuthuko futhi. So kuyinto enhle kakhulu ukuthi kube labantu abanjengoColtart. Ngicabanga ukuthi baningi abafanana laye kodwa abangamagwala. Kodwa ngibona ngathi isibindi bazasithola kuye kulokho akwenzileyo. Ngiyabonga.
Siyabonga Ncube. Dr. Chambwera, mavanzwa vaNcube vachitaura apo nenyaya ya David Coltart ku Bulawayo, imimi nemaonero enyu danho ravatora iri rekuti vati ivo vari kuzvipira kubasa ravakasarudzirwa kuti vange vachiita zvisinei nekuti anga achitungamirira pati yavo asiya basa. Izvi munozviona sei uyezve muchiri ipapo mombotipawo amwe matambudziko anounzwa nenyaya dzekuti vanhu vange vachitevera vanhu kana kuti vachitevera mapato ezvematongero enyika zvisinei nekuti mapato ayo ari kuunza chii pasina policy iri yakajeka iri kuratidza kuti iri kuenda kupi.
Ndinotenda tavokaregedza nditange nenyaya yekuti vanhu vanotevera ndozoya kunyaya yaColtart. Nyaya yekuti vanhu vanotevera munhu vasingabvunze kuti tiri kuendeswa kupi inyaya yataona munyika medu zvakanyanyisa, vanhu vachitevera takatevera kune avo vakakura kuma-80s especially munogona kurangarira kuti vanhu vaiita maslogan akaita sekuti simudza gumbo harisi rako nderamugabe. Zvinhu zvaiitwa vanhu, so kureva kuti ukandiwawo simudza gumbo haubvunze kuti ndiri kurisimudzirei, uri kurisimudza nekuti harisi rako nderamugabe. Saka iwewe muridzi wako ndiRobert Mugabe. Saka tinoona vanhu vachiendeswa, ndokubva taramba tichiendeswa kwekuti takatanga kupinzwa munzara, asi vanhu vakaramba vachitevera izvozvo, vachimutevera nenyaya yekuti ndiye anga ava muridzi wavo. So kubva ipapo mukaramba muchitarisa even pachinja hurumende, namanje vanhu vanomhanya nenyaya yekuti idi kana kuti vanomhanya nenyaya yekuti Nelson Chamisa panguva yaTsvangirai vanhu vaimhanya nenyaya yekuti Tsvangirai. So matambudziko anoitika ndeyekuti panonoitwa policy isingakurudzire o isingafambirane nezvinoita kuti vanhu vawanewo magariro akanaka munyika, hatichanobvunzi manje kuti izvi zvamava kuita izvi vava kutirasisa. Tinogona kungogunun'una, asi nenyaya yekuti tiri kuteera munhu uyu tinoramba tichingomuvhotera iyeye, uye hatigone kunyatsovabvunza vanhu ava kuti zvamuri kuita izvi muri kuzviitirei, nokuti vanenge vaita mapersonality yekuti havabvunzike, ukabvunza unonzi ndiwo watoipa. Saka kana zvadaro munhu wese anoramba achitevera, hapana achada kuti abude kunobvunzurudza kuti zvaitwa izvi zvaitirwei, kana kuti tiri kuendeswa kupi nevanhu ava. Vanhu havachabvunze izvozvo. Now izvi zvinoenderana even nenyaya yaCotat iyi yekuti Cotat ati inini kunyangwe Chamisa ati iye arizaina mubato reTriple C, inini ndicharamba ndiripo as mayor weBulawayo. So arikuenda ndokubva ataura ma-reasons ake ekuti ndiri kurambire ndiripo, nokuti inini ndiripo kuti ndishande nevanhu, ndibatsire vanhu, ndisimudzire vanhu vekuBulawayo, ndo vanhu andiri concerned navo. Mukatarisa nyaya iyi, Cotat mune imwe nzira ari right zvimwe zvinhu zvaari kutaura. Nyaya haisiri yekutevera Chamisa, nyaya ndeyekuitira vanhu. Mapoliticians aripo kuti vaitire vanhu o vaseve vanhu, ndo basa ravo, ndo basa remapoliticians. So Cotat ari kuita zvinotarisirwa kumapoliticians kuti vanofanirwa kushanda nevanhu, vanofanirwa kubatsira vanhu, vanofanirwa kusimudzira magariro evanhu, ndo zviri kutaurwa naCotat. Asi kana muzvitarisawo neimwe nzira, unogona kuzotanga kumubvunza kuti zvino iwewe kana waramba uchiti inini ndiripo sameya weBulawayo, ndakamirira Triple C, nokuti tinoziva matongerwo enyika munyika medu ndeyekuti Cotat aripo nokuti akavhoterwa achinzi ndewe Triple C. Asi kana Triple C iyi yava yachavamwe, zvoreva here kuti Cotat ari kuti inini ndobvuma kuva pasi pachavamwe? Ndo mubvunzo unokwanisa kubvunzwa. Ndimwe nzira yekuzvitarisa iyi kana takaitarisa from yes.
Tinotenda Dhoka chimbobatai muri ipapo, timbodzokera kuna vaNcuve. Ncuve lapana, looking at all this, does it bring a new dynamic where people can start following work that is done by someone, or the results that we see someone doing, or we are still far from getting there?
Fortunately, I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. The way Chamisa is, I think he has taken it too far. He has overstretched the patience even of those who have been cheering him on. Now, I think a lot of people are going to start to say, where exactly are we going? There is some audio that I listened to of what happened in Manicaland. The people there, they talked to these leaders, I think there was Chivaya and others. They were asking him very important questions. to say, where are you taking this that you are doing? Where are you going with this kind of behavior? I think we have reached a stage where Chamisa will have to learn his lessons. The way he has not consulted anyone, we never heard of any consultation anywhere by him, even on his leaders. You are having a parliament that is full of your members. The next day they find that you are saying you are no longer there. It's actually a sad joke. This is an embarrassment of young people. It's an embarrassment of Zimbabwe internationally and anywhere where people are aware of politics. Even the young people of Zimbabwe now, they need to come to their senses and say, for how long are we going to run with this kind of some chicken that seems to be headless, that is running anywhere, is flying anywhere, where one individual is actually doing things the way he likes. Zimbabwe is having a problem because of the attitude of Mugabe, actually making himself such a god, a gigantic god, as one would put it, which he was destroying Zimbabwe. And today we can't follow into his footsteps, like what we see Chamisa doing. He has actually betrayed the strategy of the masses of Zimbabwe. Even us in the opposition, we are deeply worried about seeing him doing that, because we are wondering if he is to become a president. He will be a president for everyone. How is he going to lead the country? That's the million-dollar question.
Thank you, Mr. Ncube. As we conclude, Dr. Mbwera, do you think Zimbabweans are ready for change with the kind of politics we are seeing on the ground?
I think Zimbabweans generally want a good life. Are they ready for change? Yes, they are ready. But are they ready to suffer for the change? Probably not. So the change, it is possible to bring about change in Zimbabwe, but it's not going to be easy. And all the things that we are seeing now, especially in the opposition with Nelson Chamisa resigning without telling anyone and all of that, these are things that are stemming from the structure of our politics, where state resources are used to infiltrate the opposition, and so there is this general suspicion of anyone and everyone. So you never know who is on your side and who is against you. And this is how change becomes extremely difficult. So you have extremely constricting laws on the one hand, and then you have a state machinery that is pointed against citizens, against the opposition, and that then results in this general suspicion of everyone and anyone. People can speak freely. People are afraid to say what they believe in or who they want to follow or who they want to vote for. It is a dangerous, dangerous territory that Zimbabweans find themselves in. Are they ready for change? Yes. Is that change going to be easy? No. It's going to be very difficult.
Thank you.
It's a long road, hard road.
Thank you, Doc. Unfortunately, time is not friendly. Let me take this opportunity to thank you for coming on the program and for participating on Live Talk. We'll continue this discussion later on as we look at what can be done to better the situation so that people can be in a position to know that they can have policy-driven politics in Zimbabwe. And that brings us to the end of our show. Signing off in Washington, I am Taboka Ncube.